they're not going to be up today. So I think we can start. So today we will open with how we deliver our solution versus how we share it with our co-workers, co-developers. And we will spend maybe most of the time talking about how we use data items. This is causing a lot of mistakes, and it can be a little bit inconvenient if you don't have a complete understanding how the data can be stored. Hi, Bal, how are you? How
Good, Yuri.
uh, Glad to hear this. So how we use data items in order to transfer our data from solution to solution. Then we will have just a smaller portion of Clio solution. We will talk about Clio much more on day 9. We will have a proper introduction to Clio tool and discussion today only brief, and this is going to be necessary to me to save some time, but you will be invited to install this also if you will have that option. Now, then we will talk about some frequent mistakes with data files, how we do the updates, how can we delete some records in targeted environment. We will do the installation. There is probably something that you've done a few times already, but maybe some new context there. Then we will talk about something that I hope will be a little bit entertaining, how we can use view, database view versus table in order to maybe optimize performance. And then we will be creating a new section just so that we can work with it tomorrow, as we will start with some coding examples on front end on day 4. So, to summarize where we ended up yesterday. So, yesterday we were talking about how do we share our changes with our co-developers using version control system. This is not meant for delivery. The only proper way to for delivery is using Creatio inbuilt tools that can export and import applications or packages. So yesterday I've created, using the same script that I've shared, I've created another environment, Y4 test, which is my testing environment, and I will be using this in order to introduce the delivery. And we will see the two groups of tabs in my Edge. So this is my dev environment, and this group will be my test environment. And as of now, my test environment is empty. If I go to advanced settings and try to find my yacht, I will see nothing because as of now, my force environment test is just studio, a plain canvas without anything, whereas in my dev environment, I already developed something. So I'll be pretending that, well, we've developed something useful and beneficial. I've already shared this with colleagues, and now this is ready to be tested on the test environment. Just to, as a brief reminder, what we have in our dev environment, we have a yacht application. Over here, we have our yacht application. It has, as of now, very few items. Those we have a dummy business process and a new traffic lights object. So here is the data model, traffic lights. It can be a little bit confusing, but in Creatio, data model is object, object is data model. We use them interchangeably. But in documentation, you will see most of the references, especially when this is regarding more complex subjects, more technical documentation, you will see references to objects, not data models. I think it was an attempt to rename this item because um, objects can sound a little bit confusing, especially in the context of C sharp. But really, mostly you will see them called as object, but this is the same thing. So we've created our traffic lights, and just as a quick reminder, we also then registered traffic lights to be a lookup, and we even added some data to it. So the fact that traffic lights are lookup and available in this list, this is a system data. But the three values in here, even though they are dummy values, but they are essentially representation of business type data. Now, an object like traffic lights is not meant for users to modify. We as system administrator will control these values. So say we are limiting this to just three values. So we only registered this as a lookup because our regular system users will not have access to this section. Now I'm going to deliver this solution from my dev environment to my test environment. There are two options actually. The older approach, because my yacht application only has one package, and from the interface perspective, this yacht application is just the navigation tool. The information about the application is actually stored in primary active application active package. So what it means is that if I go to configuration section and export just the user yacht package, not the yacht application, I will actually obtain the full information about package, its configuration items, and application itself. And hopefully from yesterday we remember that even though in Creatio IDE I only see like two configuration items, these are made for the simplicity of uh, simplicity my for our no-code developers, whereas in fact it is a touch more complex. We have quite a few more items there. So this is my yacht package actually. It's already looks quite different comparing to this. And here I have my files. I will have my DLLs when we will introduce some C# code, but I will have some auto-generated files for debugging. I have two schemas. These are my two items. This is my process, few elements here. This is my object, also few items, still have the standard structure of having the descriptor of object, properties of object, and some additional metadata to it. But essentially, this is what I want to deliver to my test. All of this is what I want to be delivered to the file system of my targeted environment, even though it is represented just, well, for the simplicity, as two configuration items here. So we've just talked about how I could do this, but I would not recommend doing this. Even if you're working on a small, medium business project and you only have one master application and one master package, doing this will base essentially create a habit. And instead, it's best if we would export that master application. Technically, that will do the same thing, but later on, when your app will have multiple packages, it will just make the transition so much smoother. So I'm going to Application Hub, three dots, Export, and I will save this to desktop. So we are creating a zip archive. It will be automatically named. It will even include current time up to seconds. This is my current time. It's 17 minutes past 12, 30 seconds in 17th minute when I clicked export. So we'll save this. And now I'm switching to my test environment and I will go to Application Hub also, because if I want to import package, I can do this from configuration. But if I want to import application, it's best to use that. Well, I only can do this from Application Hub. As of now, test environment has nothing custom to it. New application, and I choose install from file option. I will select from file. This is my zip file. And now I'm initiating a loader. A great thing here that I will see the version. I will probably usually be importing from the folder that will have multiple archives. So this is the way creating versions, we will do that later on, will prevent me from making some mistakes. So I'll be installing this from archive. And we have initiated a special loader into the environment. When we will be diving into logging tools, we will check where that is. But loader is a pretty smart solution. Loader will only work with items that were modified after previous installation. We'll elaborate on that later. Right now, let's check the result. And we can go either to configuration or here. So there is my yacht application in my test environment. And it has the user yacht that has two items, dummy process, object, and if I go to data models, I will see my traffic lights. From here, we will see that user yacht is grayed out. And this is a proper behavior that you will actually witness in real life scenarios. If I now go to configuration section, yacht seems to be non-present. That is not so. It's just that it is in alphabetical order placed among the locked packages. This package is alien to this environment. It was not created in this environment. And so by default, it is meant to be locked. So in this test environment of mine, I shouldn't even try to modify this configuration items. If I need some changes, obviously I would make those changes in development environment, and then I would deliver those changes through the same process to my test environment. But my in my test environment and in my production environment, those items delivered will be locked. Now we can unlock them, but the unlocking is not for test or production environment. If we really need to unlock for like quick fix, there is a different option here, unlock for hotfix. But there can be scenarios in development, more complex scenarios, when you will need to unlock such a package, and we will go through that scenario. The difference is that most of you are using trial or demo environment. And if you will try to repeat this just to play with your trial and demo environments, so say you've already created one trial environment, and today you will create another one just to play with this delivery, you will see this unlocked. This is not a bug, and it doesn't mean that you did something wrong. It's just the specifics of how demo and trial works. Most likely, Creatio partners repeatedly asked for this because if you're a Creatio partner, you would usually reuse some of the um, previously pre-configured demonstration items, and before you talk with your next prospect, you would simply try to upload your zip archive in new trial environment just to make it as quick as possible. And you will need to take some extra steps to unlock it, to modify. So probably it was a repetitive request to unlock, especially from no coders, that change the default behavior. But this is the proper behavior. It will be locked after import. In your trial environment, it will be unlocked only to make your life easier for your demonstrations. So, in our test environment, we've seen our object traffic lights. But if I go to Studio in lookups, and I will also change a little the layout of this section. I want to see this as list, and I will also be sorting by created on column. And I'll also add a summary just to display the number of records. So I see that in total, in my test environment, I have 126 lookups, and I do not have a lookup for my traffic lights, even though object did arrive. That is because I'm missing some data. I'm missing both system data and the lights themselves, which is actually business data. I now switched to my development environment just for comparison, where the traffic lights is present. And I will see now that in my development environment, I have 127 lookups. So how do we fix this and why this is important? This is a very, very common mistake. Everything that you will heavily rely on, and if traffic lights is a lookup, essentially meaning that this is not a user section that is meant for user to modify, but something that you input, you will usually use an object like this very frequently in your business processes, in your business rules. Just to give you an example, for example, if I would create a business process, let's use our dummy process just as an example. This is something that happens very, very, very frequently. So as of now, it doesn't seem like a big deal. Couldn't I just go to my test or prod environment and register? I'm now back to my test just in case. Couldn't I just do the same, register my traffic lights? Because object is present, structure is present, database table is present, logic and physics layers are present. It's just that I'm lacking some data. So couldn't I just create green, well, this register this as a lookup and add these values as I did? I shouldn't, because usually what happens is you use it somehow. So this is a dummy process that we've created, but say we have, well, hopefully you already have some experience with business processes. We will also work very little in business process for some low coding examples. But now, let's say I'm using a new global parameter, and I will call this light. And the idea is that I will maybe have some multiple flows, and depending on some conditions, one of the flows, uh, well, maybe I will have three flows, right? It would make sense. I have three lights and I have three different flows. Well, something obviously happens prior to this part, but for example, something happened and I have a condition which will switch my light to red, right? And so I will use this function element in order to assign red to my traffic light global parameter. So which parameter I'm switching traffic light? Formula value then, and system settings or lookups, non-variables, constant figures. And for example, here I would say this is again my development environment. Just to be on the safe side, I'm still in development environment. And I will say, well, something happened and I'm turning my traffic light to green. Let's see this assignment. I am hard coding here a specific value of traffic light. And this, which means that I'm relying on the primary key of green traffic light. So I'm assigning this value of my green traffic light in the business process. What will happen if I deliver this business process to my test environment? Because my test environment doesn't have that green light with that ID, this business process will not work. It will have an foreign key exception, foreign key constraint exception. So it will not work. And so it also means that if in my production environment I create manually a new lookup and add those three lights, they will have their own unique IDs, which are not matching whatever I configured in my process, and they will not work. The same is the truth for system settings. So this approach is not okay, and we should never do this. Instead, we should properly bind this data, the green light and the ID of the green light, so this arrives to the test and production environment properly, and thus business process would work also. And we will learn about a very useful tool that can quicken this process called Data Binding Tool, developed by one of Croatia integrators. But prior to that, we will go through the default flow. So I am now going to advanced settings of my dev environment, yacht package, and I'm adding a data file. Another thing that is very frequently missed is when developers bind either the fact that traffic light is in lookups but not data, or just data but not the fact that traffic lights is registered as lookup. Because these are essentially two different components. There is a system tables that states that some objects should be not should be, they are registered as lookups. And there is a core, oh, sorry, there is a core functionality that results in the fact that we can select such an object in lookups. So this is separate data and also a different data for the business items themselves. So I need to create two data files, not just one. Data file is meant for this migration, and we will talk how to insert, update, and finally delete data in your targeted environment using the delivery method. So I'm adding new data file. And we have multiple installation types. Uh, well, they're described right here. Usually, we use installation, which is insert plus update, upsert, and the new normal for Creatio to install data. There is update existing, which is an old still supported way, meant only for some legacy systems, very old solutions where this was employed, so it will be present for some time. There is initial data installation, where we only insert the first type, first time, but we will not use updates later on. Uh, and this is where for package and for data separately. So, well, but again, this is all described here if you are interested in details. But the normal, the regular installation type is installation. So first, we're going to install the fact that traffic lights is registered as lookup, and the object is simply called lookup. And we will give it a descriptive name, so name lookup traffic lights. Now, I can simply find by name, but I need to bind it, this very fact, and if I click add, I will see all of the records that essentially register objects as lookups. And as we know, there are 127 such records in total. Whereas in my test environment, there is 126. So what it means that from this list of all the records that I can bind, 126 are irrelevant because they are already present in test. I only need to bind the row in that system table that states the traffic lights have their own place in lookup section. So this is the only database row that I need to bind. And now we can save this and close. And this is the first common mistake. If I only deliver this, then I should expect that in my targeted environments, traffic lights appear, but not the data behind. So this is a different binding data type, a data item. I need to add one more, add data. And now I'm actually binding the traffic lights themselves. Object user traffic lights, name traffic lights values, bound data, add, and in the traffic lights table, we only have 3 records, and we will bind all 3. So let's save. Now that we have both, we will go to Application Hub. And before exporting, we will maybe even specify this. This is a good approach, actually. So we can go to, again, this was a little fast. I opened application, this edit application button, and I will change version to 101. And I could even mention this in description. This is merely an example. We won't see this immediately, unfortunately. Usually we use this in commitments, but I can say that maybe traffic lights bound. Now I will export this. I'm not going to overwrite the previous version. I want to still keep it present. And thankfully, when I will be using the import for the test, there is a window that will allow me to make sure that I'm importing a proper version. So how do I do this? Back to application of my test environment, application hub, still new application, install from file as if it was new, select file, and I will find the later version. And we are loading version 101, which is very useful if I accidentally selected not the proper one. Yes, update. Loader is pretty smart. We will not go through all the configuration items of that zip file, only through the configuration items that have modified on value, which is different from previous installation. So what it means is that starting from previous installation, object modified on in the targeted environment is the same as a newly arrived zip file, same for the business process, but data files they were not present, and if I later, when we will later modify them, only they should be processed. Though it is a little bit different from data files, we'll see that in action. Okay, so now
Yuri, suppose we are changing the what lookup value, like we are modifying, suppose some other value,
mhm.
blue,
Yeah,
blue is 4, then that case we need to write this data again.
we will go through that process. Yeah, these are very important. The lookup updates, so new inserts and updates of existing values, we will go through them as well.
Okay.
Mhm. But this is a very valuable question. So yes, these are very important. But as of now, let's give it a shot and try to find our traffic lights. And now in our test environment, we see the traffic lights and we see the value for traffic lights in test environment. Okay. Now, we will still work with data binding and the most frequent mistakes that causing issues. Um, So we will go through updates, deletions, adding new data, but this is going to be very, very repetitive steps. So this is why today I am sort of forced to start with Clio demo utility, which will automate delivery for me, just so that we don't go through these steps of going to application hub, exporting application hub, importing, waiting. So we will just fasten this process because starting from today, I will going to do the delivery very, very frequently. We will do the proper Clio introduction on day 9, but today, and this is optional, I would invite you to also try Clio. So what is Clio? Clio is a tool that is only very, very recently became officially part of the Creatio family of products. This is a utility that was created by Creatio employees for Creatio employees initially. So it's by developers for developers, it's open source. So you can join this effort and contribute if you wish. And very recently, a few months back, it became official, but we've been recommending this for years now. This allows you to do a lot of automations. Items like maintaining your Redis caching service, checking if your Windows environment is Creatio ready. All these repetitive items can be automated with Clio. So just a moment, you will have to need to run some command line. I'll use PowerShell, but any command line will do. And I need to run this under special privileges as administrator because um so how do you install Clio? Again, this is a little bit of an off top. We will get back to data files, binding, and so on. It's just the repetitive process that um, we want to sort of work around. So Clio does has some recommendations. It does require an SDK of .NET 8. We are now at .NET 9 latest. And first and foremost, if you want to install this, you want to check you want to check whether or not you have the necessary component. So Clio list, .NET list um, software development kits, and you want to see that 8 is installed. Okay, so your Windows environment is Clio ready. Now I already have Clio installed, so I will uninstall it first. .NET tool uninstall uninstall Clio. Um, you can potentially, this is something that I've tried. You can try and install this tool somewhere in the controlled environment, but Clio tool is relying on .NET global libraries. So it has to be, some of the items will work, some of the tools will work if you install this in your own directory. But because it's reliant on .NET libraries, it has to be installed globally in order for you to access all capabilities of Clio. So I had it installed globally. Now I'm uninstall it. And so now we're on the same page. So if today you would want to test this, uh, step one would be opening any command file under admin privileges. This is important because we are about to install a global .NET tool. And we will now use .NET tool install or update if you see the documentation, the same Clio globally. So what happens now, we are running a search, um, finding the Clio .NET tool and installing it on our local environment. And now we have this available. So from now we can simply run command Clio just to check what is available to us. We'll have a deeper dive into what is available here, but there are a lot of almost 100 different operations that you can do with Creatio environments, unlocking packages, checking your environments, and the this can be a very good and easy automations among other things to your development process. And we can check what environments I already registered. All these commands can be running against um, a specific Creatio environment. It's not limited to local environment. I hope you understand this. We can do this with cloud environments also. All these operations are available to cloud environments. And for every such operation, we would need to provide the environment URL and the credentials under which we are allowed to run such complex items. Easier way though is to register them. So Clio will save those credentials and then you simply run these commands referring to a registered environment. And we have this command. We have also short representations of commands. Unfortunately, not all of them are visible here, though every single command has a short version. You will have to use documentation in order to have a deeper dive. We only recently started document this because it's only recently became official. We only recently started document this on Creatio Academy. So, for example, there is a command that is called show web app list. And the short version of this command is just environments. So Clio, environments, NVS, and we will see some environments that I already have registered. Because even though I have deleted Clio and then reinstall this, my user has a separate file that stores information about app settings Clio. So the environments that I have registered will still be present. And we will see some old environments. And this is an example of a cloud environment, as you can see. So these are environments that I used to prepare for our meetings. And now I'm going to register two more environments so that next time I can run operations simply referring to them. I will register my Y3 dev and my Y4 test. And if we go to our materials for today, day 3, we have this Clio folder, optional C day 9, and we have these commands. So Clio, register, depending on, well, obviously you need to find your naming with share logging and supervisor if you have this locally. So what you need to provide is parameter U for URL. If you're using cloud and you want to test this, you will need to provide your proper URL. Then parameter login, you need to provide your login, and parameter password, you need to provide your password. So next time when you run your next operation, you only need to mention the name of your Clio registered environment. So I'll simply copy this. And then I will run. So environment was configured, but to test this, if it's ready, I will run the ping command just to make sure that it is operational. So Clio ping environment Y3 dev. So y3dev is ready. I will do the same. No. I made a mistake here. If you're naming the same. So yeah, I did bang my environment properly. Oh, this is ping is not okay. Okay, so well, first and foremost, we need to recognize this is by Creatio experts for Creatio experts. There wasn't an actual ping pong. There couldn't be an actual ping pong because what I did, I just registered environment one referencing to it. So let me elaborate on that. I registered a new alias, y3dev, but actually I made a mistake and the URL is to y1dev, an environment that I use for preparation. Now let's try to run this. It's unavailable for a proper reason because before we started today, I stopped the y1dev application pool. So disregard the ping recommendation. The very fact that it gave me the success here over here is not okay because the environment is unavailable. This is something that I will say simply need to report, but ping, obviously, we need to run some more complex commands to actually ping pong, but we will see this installation. So first, I am going to unregister this environment. I'm unregistering this environment. I want to make sure that it is indeed not here. Okay. And now I'm registering it properly. But this time it's going to be y3dev. And I will do the same for y4 test or test. Now my both environments are registered. How is this useful? We will see a little bit later. Okay, let me check my text file. So y3dev, okay. Yep, all good now. Okay, so now back to our subject of data items. So we properly bound a new data item, and what we have to understand that this data item represents a data snapshot. So this data bound is not dynamic. It is not reactive to system changes. It's essentially static. And this is why we need this actualized data. But there are another things that are a very frequent and common mistakes because of misconceptions about how this should work. Now we will go back to our traffic lights lookup, and we will do two things simultaneously. First, for whatever reason, I will make my green light all capital. And also, I will add a new traffic light just like Mahabub suggested, blue traffic lights for railroad. Another thing to keep in mind here, we have this order in order to put our traffic lights in an order when we use them as a drop-down menu. This is a non-nullable integer, which means that if not filled in, it will be 0, which means that now blue is indexed at 0. But say this is fine and we're okay with this. So now we made 2 modifications to traffic lights table. If I try to deliver this again, nothing will change in my targeted environments because the static snapshot remains, oh, I'm so sorry. The static snapshot remains the same. We still have these same lights. So what it means that now that I return to this data file, I need to do 2 things. First, I know now that green had changed. So there is a special action, actualize data, which means that table traffic lights is going to be red, specifically for the bound records, and the green record is going to be re-read, and we will see new green in the bound data. Actualizing will not add new records because this is our selection, what should and what should not be bound. So blue will not appear unless I specifically instruct that, well, my targeted environment will require blue. And this is important because even with system tables, not all data should be bound. For example, organizational roles or functional roles, we only bind when we use them in business processes. This is a standard recommendation, but more on that later. Now that I added new blue, I can save this data item. And rather than doing export import, what I can do now, I will be using, evidently I closed this. I will use commands download, Clio download, and Clio install. And we can use them for packages or applications. And I would recommend to do this for applications. If an application has multiple packages, you will do that for all the content, all those packages. So we will download our application called Yacht. So this has to match. Application is called Yacht to Yacht zip from environment Yacht 3dev. And then the next operation is going to be to install the application from that Yacht zip file to the targeted environment Y4 test, and we will create a log, Yacht log. Now, that will depend where these files are going to be. Well, in my case, they're going to be in C users Y Todosan. This is where my files will end up as I'm running these commands. So how is this useful to automate delivery? Well, first of all, both download and install operations are not limited to one application only. We can have multiple applications in the same line, maybe in separate lines to have multiple different zip archives, which might be a little bit safer approach. And we can also import them not to one, but to many environments. And this can be a very cool automation tool. So I create a single command file with a collection of such instructions where I extract one or many applications from my source environment and I install it maybe not to one, but to multiple targeted environments. So when the time comes, I'm only, clicking one CMD files, and I can, in this single operation, I may be downloading 3, 4 application that maintain 15 packages in total and install them into 2 test environments, one for maybe load stress test, another for integration test. But we will just simply run them in our command line. So, sorry. Uh, a moment, non-reactive. I need to reconnect my keyboard. So Clio, download application yacht to yacht zip from Y3Dev. And Clio install application yacht zip from yacht zip to Y4 test. A very important step here. One of the reasons whenever you are switching from file system development mode to database development mode, you will always need to compile before proceeding. And it used to be a problem when everything was compiled into single assembly. It was essentially a rebuild to all and everything. Now it's a much faster process. It's a little bit long. I assume I might run into a compilation error. Not a problem. We'll now have a break, so I should be able to figure it out. Yeah, there's definitely an issue. Um, and we are not even that preoccupied. So yeah, we have over 16. I'm running 2 instances of Croatia. One of those is in the middle of compilation, so a lot of in-memory is reserved for that. I am now in over 16 gigabytes. Thankfully, I have 32, so I have some extra space for that. But uh, maybe we can check build log right now. I did not change the log destination for my Y4 test like I did for my Y3Dev. My Y3Dev, this is something that we've done day one, so probably you've forgotten. I switched to store this, I think in Creatio, default website. Yes, so I have my log available here. Unfortunately, my logs for Y4Dev won't be available to me under this user. So I'll need a moment to check where they us. No, sorry. I don't need the destination files. I'll need to find my logger. Upper Windows temp. Mhm. So here is our log. Today is 7th. And we have our build log. Yeah, these are inconveniences of having multiple user that I need to run under very different users. And I don't have the full access and control. Yeah, so maybe I won't be able to showcase this today. I will prepare the environment for logging when the time comes. I'll close the session, try to load, and check if we are in the mid of restart. Yeah, evidently we are. Okay. So we did arrive, but just to be on the safer side, I'm going to rerun this operation again. Sorry for this demonstration, but there are some policies. I will have to use corporate Zoom. I will have to use only corporate available toolkits. So let's run this properly to see. And we also have log in installation log in C users. In my case, C users. Where is white.sn? And we have the out log. And no, so application was installed successfully. This is our log from loader. We have a build log that I used that I tried to access initially. We'll look into that later. But this is the loader log. So it says that everything worked properly, just that I timed out my PowerShell. So I'll just repeat this operation. I don't expect anything to change. Now, if we see our test environment, targeted environment, we see this preloader because we're running compilation and restart. Sorry, for how long was I mute?
Almost 5 to 10 minutes, Yuri.
Oh my God. I am so sorry for this. I don't know how this happened. Probably I accidentally hit some hotkey. So what I was saying is 5 to 10 minutes, you say, right?
Yes, probably like five, maybe.
Okay, I'm very, very sorry for this, but what I was saying, so what we are doing here, uh, because we've seen how in test environment, blue did arrive, but green did not change to all capital. That is because to another property of this data file, and the property is forced update, which is unfortunately by default is off because we only need to force update the selected columns. So what happened is when this data file arrived in targeted environment previously, where we seen blue inserted but green was not updated, is because simply creation loader checked whether or not a record with a specific ID is present. So the answer here was yes, 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 no, and insert occurred. This is the behavior of the installation type. In order to update a specific value, we need to check force update for selected columns. So we will force update the name column and we will force update the order column. I then went to the lookup. I assigned new order to the blue value. I needed to get back here and to actualize data so that my bound data would include that force. And now I'm using my clear utility in order to test this in my test environment. So installation happened. I'm clicking here lookups in order to update data. And now I see that green did become all capital. And this is a very, very frequent mistaken in misconception because force update is not it's not easy to properly map what should be force update. So it might think that, well, name should always be force update, but what is name? Name is just a text column. The fact that this is a displayed value is an object property. It has nothing to do with data table or data itself. So we will have to manually select what should be forced updated. Actualizing data simply means that we are updating our snapshot. But if it's not forced for update, nothing will happen. Sorry for the inconvenience of being mute with you. Okay, so we are let's take a break. Maybe today, if you don't mind, we could make it 10 minutes. Are you okay with this? Could you please give me a thumbs up? Okay, perfect. So 10 minutes it is. I have 21 minutes on my clock. Let's get back to it in 10 when it's 31. See you in 10. So we properly bound a lookup and its values, but the same thing is becoming a problem when we are binding a system setting, a global variable that is also very often used not only just in business processes, but in our code as well. We will be referring to system settings quite frequently, and sometimes we just don't quite capture how to properly bound it. So I'm back to my development environment and my system settings section. And I will create a new system setting. And I will call this Academy website. Sorry, this is Ukrainian. Academy website. Type. So as a global variable, it will have a data type. So as a row in data table, we will have all other columns empty. We will see this reflected in the bound data item. So Academy website is a text 50 characters, and value is going to be academycreatio.com. And we also need code, no special characters. And two two features are available here. First, usually our system settings are cached, meaning that as I am running my user session, as long as I am logged in current user session, the value for this variable will be cached during that session. But some system settings are more dynamic. They will change during user session, so I will have to uncheck this cached. Another cool feature is to have the global variable that can still be unique to some. Haritha, is there a question? Another feature is that we can have a unique value to some of the users. But this type of flexibility comes with a more complex structure. And this is also very frequently missed because for system settings, we separately store a system setting header, essentially. Sorry, a moment. A system setting header, essentially this part, we will store separately, and the value itself is stored in a different data table. So how this is represented in how this should be bound properly. Back to configuration. Yacht package, new data item. First is syssettings object, and we'll give it a proper name. Sorry, I forgot how did we name this. Did I not maybe save this? I'm back to my system settings section. There is no created on. Yeah, sorry, I only need to find by name. And evidently I did not save it. But just to make sure, let's try to find this. Yeah, sorry, I did not save this. Let's do this again. Academy website. Same for the code. So two data items again. One is for header. Just like with lookups, my targeted environment has already all other system settings, and I only need to bind this new Academy website header. And this again is very frequently overlooked because if I go to column settings, I will see that there is no column that would somehow store my specific setting. So I have some properties such as hidden properties if it's allowed for portal user, if it's that Boolean that we've talked is personal, essentially unique to a specific user. But this is just the Academy website header. So now if I'm referring to it, which is maybe even more important, referring to it in a business process or maybe on a page schema, I also need to bind system setting value. And in the bound data, now here I will be able to select created on. Why do I need to select created on? This will make my search much easier because I only need to bind one value, and I will use that created on that I have just added in order to sort it to see, sorry, not use that, it's already 26, to see this new value of mine. So this is a completely separate table. And if we go to column settings, we will see the structure of system setting values. So here we will see, for example, to which header this value is connected, but also we will see that binary value, none, float value, none, grid value. Well, this is also none in this scenario. Connected to system admin unit, also none. But what we want to force update here depends of what kind of system setting we're using. Our system setting is text value, so we're not using any of these. And text value should be force update. Only then, once it's actualized, the changed will arrive into targeted environment. And once again, we will run two operations to download first. And to install. To make sure it properly arrives to our test environment. To system settings. This is test environment, and now here is Academy website, and default value is also here. So this is the only proper way to bind your system settings. Now, next one is deleting data. Deleting is only available with some SQL scripts. You cannot delete the data with data items. You can only update and insert through actualizing data for update. And again, this will only work for the columns that are marked for force update. And you can only insert with this add button for bound data. There is no deletion, and probably never will be, because deletion would mean that you will have to process all the content of the existing database with all the content of the data snapshot, which is not not optimal. The only way to delete is through adding some SQL script, which will depend obviously on the database type. And this is an item that you will need to use very, very carefully. Creatio will not secure you from script. You can run SQL scripts against business data tables, but also against system data tables. It is very easy to destroy your Creatio environment with an incorrect SQL script. So they shouldn't be like auto-generated, and they should only be executed by people who have some experience with SQL scripts. You can destroy Creatio very easily. So our scenario is this. We're going back to our traffic lights, and we'll say that blue is no longer necessary. So for example, our solution is non-applicable for railroads, and blue traffic light is unnecessary, and we will want to delete this. In Creatio, delete is a true SQL delete. So there is no soft delete in Creatio. If I hit delete, this is my, again, dev environment, the item is gone. But because I have this snapshot of my data item, here is my traffic light values, we still will have the deleted value available here with its original ID, which means if I did this by accident and my business process is referring to blue by the ID of the blue, creating a new blue obviously will not fix this. I will need to go through my own documentation, try to find all the items that employs that ID, and somehow modify this. But there is a much simpler way, modify all of those items with the new blue ID. But because I have this snapshot, I can install this data file to the same environment that it was generated. So I am now in development environment. I have my traffic lights values data file, and I am going to install it to this same environment. And the result of this installation, so the operation is the same as if it would arrive to target environment. But I install this is my own environment, and I see blue in the same environment restored with the original ID. So everything that has this for reference as a foreign key will work still. But let's say I do indeed want to delete blue. So I will delete here, or maybe I can test my SQL script first. So rather than running the user operation to delete, I can in fact add SQL script. Code is going to be delete blue traffic light. For SQL scripts, we need to carefully choose our database type. I'm running local Microsoft SQL Server. If you're using a training demo or a trial environment, you are using PostgreSQL. So make sure to select that. I'm staying with Microsoft SQL. Installation type is important. We will talk about that a little bit later, but what it means is before package objects are processed, after package process, package items are processed, after schema data, after data items are processed, and uninstall app. This is a careful way in order to build your marketplace apps. If you build a marketplace app and someone would delete it after trial period, maybe, you want to initiate some scripts that will take care of unnecessary items. So delete them from the environment where that app was installed originally. So we will keep it by default because this is another common mistakes. Backward compatibility, you can read it in a separate article. It was also designed for marketplace, but it is actually very, very restrictive. I never tried anything like this, but from the people who did, I heard that it's not very useful due to those restrictions and limitations. So we'll apply. And then if you will test this, which is optional, yeah, I will need you to be very careful. So under day 3, we have delete SQL script file, and it's different from Microsoft SQL database and PostgreSQL database. Make sure to use a proper one. For example, on entity names need to have double quotes around them for Postgre, which is a little bit different. So the query text is a bit different. So I'm using Microsoft SQL. If you're using trial, you will need to use PostgreSQL. So I'm going to copy this where I am simply deleting a database row where value in column name is blue, or you could use if you want ID, but your ID is obviously will be unique. And I'm deleting this from a table called user traffic lights. Lights, I wonder. Well, we'll see an error if it doesn't work. But again, I'm sorry. This is a very simple operation that is targeting some business data. So it's more or less safe. But you should not overdo SQL scripts. It's again very simple to destroy your creation. You need to be very, very careful with it. So let's save, and I have a doubt here. So I will try to install this script locally before I do my delivery. I did not delete my blue manually. So let's run script first. 3 dots, install, yes. It did install. I just wasn't sure name of the object. Yeah, it is plural lights. So this is something that you will need to be careful about. Make sure that this matches the name of database table. When I've created this object, as we've discussed yesterday, this also reflected into creating a physical layer object named in plural lights. So now if I update this by simply clicking lookups, blue should disappear. Okay, so this does work. Perfect. Now let's try to deliver this. And installing this into the test environment. And while it's installing, something that I mentioned previously, that Loader is very smart because you will be delivering packages or applications containing multiple packages, and those packages will have potentially 1,000 items inside. So not every item will be installed. What is reliant on is modified on for the item that is installed. Now I only have, so Loader will now check. Did this change? No, so we'll skip this item. Did this change? No, so we skip this item. Did this change? We never seen this item before, so we will install this. But for data items, it's still, because it's has to be consistent against database, evidently, and you will see this if you go through logs, it works just slightly different. And if I go now to my test environment, and I will go to my lookups and traffic lights. Oh, blue is gone. It's a little bit inconsistent. But you will want to, yeah, unfortunate, a little bit unfortunate. So yeah, this time it worked. But there are some exceptions with data files. Something that I've seen, maybe this was only temporarily and it is fixed now. It's just an undocumented fix. But let's go to values, bound data, blue is present, and script to delete blue is after package. Yeah, so it did work, but what you can face potentially, and this is a bit inconsistent because as I was preparing for today, I still ran into this. So you just will have to be careful around your data files, because evidently they sometimes checked even though modified on is, modified on is unattended. So what did happen to me as I was preparing for today, and this is actually something that I expected during our session as well, is that my SQL script was executed as instructed after package, but before data files, just as a reminder. So we can select this here. So after package schemas, not just object, but after package schemas, but before data files. So my SQL script deleted blue. But then, even though my data file modified on did not change, Creatio Loader still checked into the data file. And what happened is, because my data file was containing the blue over here, an insertion occurred. So it deleted through SQL script first, but then inserted with data file. And this is something that can happen to you. I see an inconsistency here because it did not occur today during this run. Maybe I accidentally saved the values as I was showing them, which would change modified, but I can track this. No, this is not the case. They are different. So this is actually great, but that can happen to you. So make sure to check your deletion scripts. And the safest way still would be when you create your deletion SQL script to simply set it. Oh, sorry, this is test environment. It won't allow to make any modifications, obviously. The safest way would be to set SQL script deletion run after schema data. So after all data files are processed, you will want to delete, to run your deletion. Okay, so now back to our training program. Next, we're going to install Customer 360. We will use, you've done this many times before, I'm sure, but we will use this as a setup for our next assignment, which is building a database view. But there is an important thing to mention here. So I'm going to Application Hub. I'm going to install Customer 360. Customer 360 employs a new Freedom UI pages for Creatio. In fact, even out of the box, Creatio already has account and contact pages, but they are in Classic UI. And we've already seen Classic UI quite frequently. Probably the easiest way to identify Classic UI is the fact that you cannot change the width of the columns. So for example, if I go to, give me a second. This is a skills section, which I know for a fact to be Freedom UI. And user during runtime can resize the widths of tables. This very fact immediately tells me that this is Freedom UI. If I go to lookup section as an example, I can simply not do that. There are many more differences, obviously, but essentially Classic UI versus Freedom UI. Classic is an old version of Creatio interfaces, user interfaces, and is no longer supported. Starting 8.3.2, which is our current build in the latest version of Creatio, starting 8.3.2, Classic UI is no longer supported. The related items have disappeared also from the settings. But not to stress, because there was some concerns regarding this. What does it mean not supported? What it means is I will now go to workplace setup, and I will just, for the example, I will add the contact section, which is actually already present in Creatio. And UI type, you will see here Classic UI. So this is Classic contact section. It has this option for the tile view. It can be changed. Oh, I'm so sorry. It can be changed to list view still, which is my personal preference for Classic also, but I will see that I cannot resize them. So this is Classic UI list page. This is Classic UI form page. We will see a different form page today. So this is pre-configured. Classic UI is a little bit more robust, but essentially outdated. And the tool to customize page is very restrictive and limited comparing to Freedom UI page. So I'm now looking at a Classic UI page in 8.3.2, which no longer supports because it means that pages will load properly and will keep loading properly, probably forever. Classic UI pages will work. It's just that they are now only can be inserted in the new Freedom UI shell. Technically, you can still return classic shell, but it is very, very outdated. There are some limitations in how classic UI pages work with Creatio AI. In classic UI AI is not supported at all, but now I'm sort of in a mix. I'm using Freedom UI newer shell. I'm opened classic UI page. So they seem consistent because the low level styles are applied. We see those edges cut, so it seems to be working properly. So it's more or less consistent with the feel of my overall shell, but some items like AI will not work as expected because of how some information are extracted from page attributes that can have different access to it. So no longer supported means that if you will work with old projects that have classic UI pages, they will work, but you should not create any classic UI pages. To discourage you from that, the tools by default are taken away. They can be reintroduced through some feature enablement processes, but this was an example that Contact already used. Contact is part of Creatio Studio. It's mandatory for Creatio to operate on many levels. And Creatio is meant to build business applications. I cannot imagine a project without contacts and account section. Now we're going to install a newer field to this, which is Customer 360. So for that, we will go to Application Hub. New application, Customer 360, select. You will have to be logged into Creatio Academy for this to work exactly the same. So you registered for this course, so you have your account. Just make sure that you are logged in, because if you are, you will see that current session for my marketplace visit, the HTTP request already includes my environment. So if you're using cloud, it will look very differently, but essentially this session is already connected to a targeted Creatio instance. So I will install Customer 360. And now an important thing here is you will have to consider, we will be installing this on test environment also, because we're going to be delivering to test environment. And my approach is going to be that I will not modify Customer 360 application. And alternative could be that I would be using Customer 360 in order to modify my contacts and accounts. So what I'm saying is this: instead, I will have my master application with my master package and maybe some subsidiary packages. And my master package will have replacing contact object, replacing contact page schemas, because all other items are going to use them. So I will place them there. But a whole different approach would be that whatever is related to contact will stay in Customer 360, which means that if I would add, again, I understand that people here have different level of experience in Creatio. If you've been through no-code course, I believe this was explained to you as well. But if you want to learn more, if it doesn't really fit what you know already in Creatio, please feel free to stay when we're done, because this is a very important part. Understanding replacing objects versus new object is important. So if I want to add a new column to my contact, I need to decide where that replacing object will be. Will it fall in the scope of the Customer 360 application, or will it be in the scope of my master package? If it's the former, if I want it to be, for whatever reason, this is my design for my application, I will keep it in Customer 360. It means that now I will have to deliver not one application, but two, both. My Customer 360 has a newer version of Contact. My master application has whatever it has, and I will now need to deliver both. And this is the only proper way if you are making changes here. Because what I did now, I installed my Customer 360 to both development and environment. Say I did this in a real life project. I installed in test and prod Customer 360 just to align them with my dev environment. But then in my dev environment, I introduce a new replacing contact object into this application. So obviously, if I want this to appear in my test environment, I will be delivering two applications. The problem is that my targeted, I'm now to test environment, my targeted test environment in this Customer 360 application doesn't have meta information that there is a new package containing new version for contact object that belongs to you. So what I'm saying is, if this is your method of delivery, if you want to keep everything that is related to Customer 360 in Customer 360 application, instead of what I humbly would recommend doing, like creating a new contact in your master package. So do not install Customer 360 in your targeted applications. Migrate both so your test environment will know that Customer 360, as it arrives with some current active package for Customer 360 application. So just to elaborate, say I'm now creating a data model. I am doing this careless, so I am not adding a new package to create a new active package. I'm just creating a replacing contact. And I will only add one item. So Creatio generated a new package in the scope of Customer 360. Problem is, my target environment in the metadata that is responsible for connecting application and packages doesn't know such a package exists. It might arrive what looks properly, but it will cause problems later. So if this is your approach, if you want everything related to contacts remain there, then, and I will delete this, then don't create Customer 360. But what I think is better approach is use your own applications and packages, but then you still need to align. So you will no longer deliver Customer 360 to your targeted package because there is nothing to deliver. You did not customize it. You did not touch this. It's original. You just need to make sure that your targeted environment has Customer 360 because whatever you have placed in your own application and package will be relying on the presence of Customer 360. I know it's a little bit murky. We will not cover this in one go. Hopefully, in time, this will become more and more easier to comprehend. At this time, I just need you to have a proper context, which is what is a replacing object is. If you don't, please stay today and we will discuss this. This is important. Not everyone here maybe went through the no-code training. Some of you self-educated. So maybe we need to put this into a proper context. Okay, sorry for the long off top, but this is also what is reported to be an issue now. This misconception. So we needed to spend a little time there. And now to our example, I think we should be able to, to complete this today. Okay, so now that I've installed Customer 360 app, I have new workplace, Customer 360. I have a section here, context, which is, you can tell, a new section. And if I open a record, ooh, still not a proper update. So I will need to re-log into my environment in order to see the new form page. This is just because of my demo flow and how system cached. It's already new that Customer 360 appears immediately after installation. It usn't work like that, but now I see that form page still loads classic UI. So now I'm just reopened the same contact and you see that it looks different. This is because this is a newer version, Customer 360 version of contact. So a contact has a birth date and has automatically calculated age. And did I change anything? I don't think so. And we can just to showcase this, we can add age here, and age is in years. And if I will modify somehow age of Andrew Baker, now I need to modify it. We will see the recalculation appear. We will create something that business-wise is not very useful, but it's more of a practice example, where we will create a view in database that will run a calculation, and this is your way to run some calculations that are this is a resource savvy option. This is still an edge case. You will usually use your calculations with business rules, with business processes. We will also test some calculations with JavaScript and C#, but recommendation will remain that everything that can be done with no code should be done with no code. But now we will use database to run some calculations. The idea is this. We will first create a new database view. That database view will work with database tables, and it will run a simple function, date difference function, where it will take the birth date and by this method get current date and get date difference calculated in days. So as a result, we will see how old a person is, but not in years, but in days. So first we create this view. We create it from contact. We take ID of the contact as ID of this view record. we take name of the contact for the username in this view, and we take birth date of the contact for the user birth date of this view. When we created traffic lights, we were talking about how when we new an object, how when we declare a new object, we do two items. We describe a complex entity class, but also as we save and publish this new item, it will automatically put together a table in your database. Today, we're going to do something different. We will first build a view in database, so it will exist in database first, and only then we will map it in Creatio. So as most of you are using cloud environments, we will do this with another SQL script. Add SQL script code. Let's align this with name, user view, contact, age, days. Okay, no, contact, age, in days view. This is going to be our name. Make sure to select proper database. I'm using Microsoft SQL. Most of you are using Postgre. Installation type in this scenario doesn't really matter. Apply. Make sure to take Postgre if you're using Postgre. I'm using Microsoft SQL to create this new view and save. I will copy this just to test in my dev environment. So I can see this red circling arrows saying that this is not installed in this database. And it could be okay. Maybe I don't need to do this in this database, but I am creating a new view, so I need this. So I will be installing this. And now I will run a small test in my database to just simply make sure that it is installed. So here is one, my Y1 dev. And yeah, I can see that this works. So I have Andrew Baker, and I have user age days, which is Andrew's age in days. So this works. Now let's deliver this to Oh, well, no, before delivering, let's make it useful, at least somewhat useful, because as of now, I can only access this from database. So now I'm going to add object, but this is going to be a very unique object because the database item already exists. So new object, and I will specifically instruct Creatio in the behavior settings of this object that this object represents structure of database view. If I will not do this, whatever columns I will now announce will become part of a new database. So Creatio will try to create a new database with the specified name and with the specified column. With this behavior property, I'm instructing the item is already there, do not register anything. This is just a mapping operation. So let's map this. We will carefully copy paste everything. So code view contact age days, title contact age in days, something more friendly for search. Parent object, none. We do not inherit anything. We are completely relying on the database operation. So this simple method is going to be run on the database level. So we do not need the usually creation mandatory columns like created on, created by, etc. But we will still need some columns to properly map it to our database view. So our database view, we can see this here, has a user ID, username, user birthday, user age and days, and user contact ID. Wait, why? No. This is a query against the wrong. We don't. Sorry for this. This is premature a little bit. The name is user view contact days. I think I accidentally ran a query for a wrong base. We don't yet have actually user contact ID. I don't know at which point well, we will. This is something that we will do tomorrow. We want this, but I will also want to explain this suffix separately. Today, we will only register this as a lookup, but essentially we're not having any parent object. So let's properly map what we're using here, what we need here. So we use contact ID as user ID for this new entity, columns, other, unique identifier, user ID, title, just ID. Another column, we need to be very careful here. Username, which is text, 50 characters. Username, title simply name. Birth date as user birth date. So new column, add date time, just date without time. We're counting in days. User birth date, birth date, and that is it. Oh, no. Sorry, the result. User age days, which is an integer, number, integer, user age days, age days. Just to be on the safe side, I want to make sure that I've selected this, okay? And my records now have the IDs, and I need to specify that to identify records of this view, I'm using the column that I called ID just now. This is the name of these columns. column, and I can save this. And as we know, the easiest way to look into this is to go to Studio. Let's make sure we have some items here. We will add some more records. Just added more birth dates. And we'll go to lookups. Refresh. New lookup. We call this contact age in days. And we can open this, and we will see aged in days properly calculated. So for Creatio AI, this is 14,000. Yeah, this is, by the way, weird behavior of a lookup. We will tomorrow introduce this to user, but the calculation is working here. This is usually not meant for modification. So this is like a read-only detail that is processed on the database level, but can be introduced to interfaces, which we will do tomorrow. And to complete our session today, let's deliver this carefully to our test environment. And I probably also should share these changes. So we have some changes tracked by our version control system. And maybe I'll call this third day. Maybe I'll find a way to utilize this later on. So now I'm sharing with my co-developers. Let's give it a moment just to test this on the test environment. And so your home assignment for today is you don't necessarily need a second environment. You can use that if you want, like create another trial environment to do the binding and delivery process. The only thing that you should expect in your second environment is that, unlike in my scenario, which is the actual life scenario, where I don't see my yacht here immediately because it's in the list of locked packages, you will have this unlocked in your targeted environment. That is okay. This is just how trial and demo environments are set. So that is fine. In real life scenario, it will be locked, but otherwise you can have other trial environment, but not necessarily, because the SQL script files can be installed locally, just like I did with data files, just like we did with these ones. So cloud or on-prem environment, recreate the steps that I've did today. Those steps are, so we did bind properly our traffic lights. So do all three operations with binding and scripts. Insert a new record, update an existing record, delete an existing record. Then Clio is totally optional. If you will feel like it, try installing Clio, but then to really test it, you will have to get another environment, maybe trial environment. And then build this view that we ended up today with. We did not use it for users. We will do this first thing tomorrow, but Sorry. I was in a little bit of a rush. It's not bound. So this is not proper application. I can still test my view, but this is not something that I really would want to do because we do not, this is actually a good practice exercise as well. So I need to add another data file, age in days, contact age in days. No, it's something different, I'm afraid. It's user view contact days. Yeah, this is how it's called. User view contact age in days. New data. Sorry for keeping you, but I think this is important. Huh. I wonder why it's having problems with finding my object. We will learn about restarting application. So this is actually what I would do in real life scenario. And we will see some maybe glitches when we are doing a lot of trying to achieve a lot of items in one go. And actually, this is not how I would bound the view. I would use a data binding tool, but still, because we're already here, I wonder why I'm not. Yeah. So we have a bit of a problem here. I think that just to test this, I will create register lookup manually here. I do not recommend this, definitely. We will use tomorrow another tool, which is a data binding tool that I would recommend for this solution. We will also use some maintenance tools to restart, and I'm pretty sure that it would fix our issue here because this is not expected. I should be able to bind values for my view, not values. Sorry, we're not binding values because the operation happens on database level, but I should be able to. Sorry. I'm very, very sorry. I'm just getting this is a view. This is why I can bind it. I don't really want to bind the view. I only need to bind the lookup value. It's not on Creatio. It's completely on me. Sorry, I got tired a little bit here. Yeah, so disregard view doesn't store the data. This is operation executed on database level. So there is nothing to bind. I shouldn't even look here. What I really want to bind is just the fact that it is stored as a lookup. Yeah, sorry, my logical mistake. The name of the lookup is contact age in days. This is uncomfortable. Contact age in days. Yeah, this is the only item that I need to bound. Very sorry for confusion. I was searching for this object, which is a mistake. I shouldn't be searching for this object. There is nothing stored there. This is a view operation. So now I was very hesitant about testing this through adding manually a lookup in my test environment because this is not something that we really should do. We'll give this a moment. interesting behavior. So now because I had this in runtime as after I start, no, I will see the preloader. Yeah, I was expecting this at the moment of the compilation started, but there is a delay evidently. So let's give this a moment. So in our dev environment, we have multiple items here calculated that we've added. And now in my test environment, contact aged in days. Yeah, only Andrew has some sort of calculation. Okay, so it works. It was properly delivered. Sorry for the delay and the confusion. Views are not bound, obviously. Only the fact that we want that to be visible as a lookup should be bound. As usually, if you have any questions,